Be sure to be able to label and identify the structures of the digestive tract as the major organs as well as the accessory glands. So the digestive tract is also called the GI tract or gastrointestinal tract or alimentary canal. It's a very long tube, about 10 meters long, and it begins in the oral cavity where there is mechanical breakup of the food, moistening of the food with saliva, and mixing with the salivary secretions to begin the breakdown of carbohydrates. The next part is the pharynx, which is the throat, and you know the pharynx has three parts of it, and in terms of food, only the oropharynx and laryngopharynx are important. The esophagus transports material to the stomach. It is a muscular tube, and it transports the material by way of peristalsis. In the stomach begins the chemical breakdown and mechanical processing of proteins and lipids. The small intestine also digests all foods, receiving supplements or receiving digestive enzymes from the pancreas. And then the large intestine does not digest food or absorb food, but it's basically to absorb water and compact indigestible materials. So know all of your organs and know them in the order that food passes through them to get to the anus. Keep in mind here at the stomach, the curve, that the initial part of the small intestine is the duodenum, and it curves around, and this is a very important part because secretions from the gallbladder, the bile, and secretions from the pancreas go here. The functions of the digestive tract include ingestion, mechanical processing, which is the chewing, digestion, which is caused by chemicals and enzymes that breaks the food into the smallest organic molecules that can then be absorbed by the cells, secretion, the release of water, acids, enzymes, buffers, and salts by the digestive tract epithelium, absorption of organic molecules, vitamins, water, electrolytes, and compaction. So as those indigestible wastes accumulate, they compact, losing their water, and this compacted material is called feces, and feces are eliminated by defecation. Know the parts of the oral cavity. Labia are the lips, the cheeks. The uvula will move back when you swallow to block food from going up into your nasal cavity. There's a hard palate and soft palate. You remember your pharyngeal tonsils at the back of the throat, the lingual tonsils at the base of the tongue. Which of these is a substrate of an enzyme secreted by salivary glands? Starch. So the oral cavity, you know, is lined with stratified squamous epithelium. Nutrients are not absorbed here, but some drugs can be. For example, nitroglycerin through the oral mucosa, and digestion of carbs and lipids begin here. A little bit of lipase is secreted here, but mostly we think of the salivary amylase as digesting starch. The tongue manipulates the material, forming what is called the bolus. The secretions of glands contain water, mucins, which forms mucus, and lingual lipase, which starts the digestion of lipids. The tongue is attached to the base of the floor, to the floor of the mouth by the frenulum. The teeth, the portion of the teeth outside the gums is the crown. Below the gum is the root. Most of the tooth is dentin, and it is covered with enamel, which is very, very hard material. So you can see this enamel covering the dentin. The crown is outside the gum. The correct term for gum is gingiva. So here's a gingival sulcus. The ligament that holds the tooth into the gum is called a gomphosis. Pardon me, the articulation that holds the tooth into the gum is a gomphosis. The root canal is the narrow tunnel in the tooth, and it's the passageway of blood vessels and nerves to the pulp cavity. And so when you have a root canal, they destroy the root. Types of teeth include incisors, shovel-shaped for biting into things. Cuspids, which would be, a canine on a cat or a dog, much pointier than in humans. Bicuspids and molars are for chewing. There are two sets of teeth. The early milk teeth, there are 20 of them. They are called primary dentition or deciduous teeth. And adults have, there are 20 deciduous teeth. Adults have 32 teeth. So there are, on both the top and the bottom, are 4 incisors, 2 cuspids, 4 premolars, and 6 molars. The last of the molars is the wisdom tooth, and that is often removed because our jaws are too small to accommodate all these teeth. Gingivitis is gum disease, and to let it go would result in losing your teeth. A good cleaning and taking care could cure this, and these teeth could be saved. Otherwise, this person will be gumming their food for the rest of their life. Tooth decay is pretty common. Bottle mouth is common for when you give children a bottle and put them to bed, and they nurse on milk or fruit juices. It causes decay in the primary teeth. There's nursing bottle mouth. You already know the regions of the pharynx: nasopharynx, oropharynx, laryngopharynx. Remember, the epiglottis is going to cover up the trachea to prevent food from going down when you swallow. The esophagus is posterior to the trachea. The esophagus is a muscular tube, and it is closed unless you are swallowing. As the food passes, it opens it up as it passes through. It enters the abdominal cavity through the esophageal hiatus. So there is this opening in the diaphragm that's required for that esophagus to pass through, and that's often a region of problem. People sometimes have a hiatal hernia, which means that opening kind of opens up a bit too much, and intestines can push up through, and it causes discomfort, and that can be fixed surgically. There are 2 sphincters in the stomach, the upper esophageal sphincter and the lower esophageal sphincter, or the cardiac sphincter. So the upper one is not a true sphincter, but it's muscle that acts as, it's a functional sphincter. It's muscle that acts as a sphincter. The esophagus is lined with stratified squamous epithelium. you need to know, of course, you need to know all of your different layers. You probably remember from the earlier PowerPoints that the layers are mucosa, submucosa, muscularis externa, and serosa or adventitia. Swallowing is called deglutition, and swallowing occurs because your tongue forces the food to the back of the mouth, and there is a reflex action and we swallow the food. So swallowing begins as the bolus is forced through the entrance to the esophagus. The bolus is pushed toward the stomach by peristalsis, and the approach of the bolus triggers the opening of the lower esophageal sphincter. The bolus enters the stomach and the sphincter closes up.